Okay, this is Algebra 1, and this is Exponents Day 2. Today we're going to talk about the division law of exponents. Once again, your bases must be equal. Remember, your base is the variable or possibly the number that's holding the exponent. And it has to be equal, which means that it has to be the same. Your exponents will be subtracted. Okay, so if you have x to the a over x to the b, it becomes x to the a minus b. So think of that fraction sign as being a minus. Now, two things you got to remember. First of all, the coefficients are the numbers in front of the variables, and they are not exponents. So they follow your normal fraction rules, and you divide or reduce them. The other thing you have to remember is that when you subtract your exponents, if you have a negative exponent, you must move it to the other part of the fraction. So, as I said earlier, coefficients will be divided or reduced. If you're not sure how it's going to reduce, you can divide it in your calculator and then do math, enter, and it'll give you the reduced fraction. Once again, remember, if you have a negative exponent, you have to move it to the other part of the fraction. So, looking at A, you have 3 to the 10th over 3 to the 5th. Your base is 3. And you're going to say 10 minus 5, which is 5. 3 to the 5th is your answer. For B, your base is x. So then you're going to say 11 minus 24, and you get a negative 13. Remember, you cannot have a negative exponent, so it has to be moved to the bottom of the fraction. And it becomes 1 over x to the positive 13. It's also important that you understand that when you move this, that negative exponent becomes positive. When you look at C, you notice your base is 2, your base is 4. That's not the same. Therefore, you can't do this one. Remember, anything to the 0 power equals 1. So if you have x to the 0, it's going to simply equal 1. If you have 3x squared y all to the 0 power, that's like saying 3 to the 0, x to the 2 times 0 is 0, y to the 1 times 0 is 0. All of those are to the 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. You've wasted energy doing that. That goes away and it's 1. So this last one here is something like what we did in the previous lesson. You're multiplying. What you need to understand is everything in this middle one is raised to the 0 power. The whole thing goes away because it would just be 1. So you're going to take your 3 times your 4 and you're going to get 12. You have an x, you're going to say 1 plus 1 is 2. And you have a y and you're going to say 1 plus 1 is 2. It's important that you understand if they don't have an exponent written, it is a 1. And you still have to add it. Okay, so 4 to the 7th over 4 to the 3rd, your base is 4. 7 minus 3 is 4. That is your answer. 10 to the 8th over 10 to the 5th, your base is 10. 8 minus 5 is 3. That is your answer. C to the 15th over C to the 24th. C to the 15 minus 24 is a negative 9. Can't have a negative exponent, so it becomes 1 over C to the 9th. You have to fix the negative exponents. All right, these next three are not what we're talking about today, so we're going to skip those. X to the 5th over x to the 3rd, your base is x. You're going to say 5 minus 3, and you're going to get 2. X squared is your answer. 2n squared over n. Your 2 doesn't do anything because it's the only coefficient, the only big number there is. You have n to the 2 minus 1. You're going to say 2 minus 1, which is 1. You do not have to put the 1. It can just be 2n. Now, 8 over 10 will reduce. If you're not sure what that fraction reduces to, you need to go 8 divided by 10, enter in your calculator. It's going to give you a decimal. And then if you go math, enter, enter, it will give you that as a reduced fraction. 8 over 10 both divides by 2, and you get 4 over 5. X to the 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Okay, you cannot have a negative exponent. This right here is causing an issue. It has to move to the other part of the fraction. It is the only thing that has to move. So your 4 and your 5 stay right where they are. Your x goes to the bottom, and the 2 becomes positive, and that is your answer. You only move the variable that had the negative exponent. So on this one, you have 12 over 9. You can either do 12 divided by 9, math enter, or you can say they both divide by 3. I have a 4 on top, a 3 on bottom. Notice we have x to the third on top, we have y to the 8th on the bottom. The bases are different, you cannot combine them. So x to the third stays here, y to the 8th stays there. This is your answer. 14 over 6, they will both divide by 2, and you have 7 over 3. X to the 4 minus 5 is a negative 1. Y to the 7 minus 4 is 3. Cannot have this negative exponent. That is the only thing that has to move. So 7, y to the third stays on top. 3x goes on bottom. That negative 1 becomes positive when I move it. The whole purpose of moving it is to fix that. So for our next one, we have 11 over 17 that will not reduce. We have u to the 4 minus 7, which is negative 3. We have a v to the 9 on the bottom, so it stays on the bottom. All right, the only negative exponent we have is right here. So 11 stays on the top, 17 stays on the bottom, u to the third on the bottom, and v to the 9th on the bottom, and that is your answer. You only move something that has a negative exponent. If for some reason you have a negative coefficient, a negative at the front of the problem, that's okay and does not need to be moved. So we have 4 and 14 both divide by 2, so we have a 2 on top and a 7 on the bottom. Y to the 4 minus 1 is 3. The only x we have is on the bottom, so it stays on the bottom since it was positive, and it's x to the 8th on the bottom. 12 and 10 both divide by 2, so you have 6 on top and 5 on bottom. You have a y and a y on the top and the bottom. They cancel each other out. So it's gone, because that's like saying 1 minus 1 is 0. There are 0 y's in the problem. Don't even write the y. X to the 4 minus 8, which is a negative 4. Cannot have a negative exponent, so it becomes 6 over 5x to the positive 4, and that is your answer. 18 and 10 both divide by 2, so you have 9 over 5. X to the 8 minus 3 is 5. Y to the 8th is the only y, so it stays like it is. And that's going to be a repeat, so we'll skip that page. We have 5 over 20. They both divide by 5, so I have a 1 and I have a 4. Into the 8th and into the 8th. 8 minus 8 is 0, so it's gone. You have no variable in there. That's legal. It's possible. 16 over 9. They do not have anything in common, so your 16 and your 9 stay just like they are. Y to the 1 minus 2 is negative 1. X to the 4 minus 8 is negative 4. Cannot have this or this. So my 16 and my 9 are good. My y comes to the bottom, and my x to the 4th comes to the bottom. 2 over 6 reduces to 1 over 3. X to the 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Y to the 2 minus 1 is 1. Your z's are going to cancel. Once again, we cannot have this negative exponent, so it becomes 1y over 3x squared. You do not have to have that 1 written. It's okay if you do. All right, this is a refresher or a reminder of what we did in the last lesson. It's multiplication. You're going to multiply your coefficients, your big numbers at the front. So 2 times 4 is 8. You're going to add your exponents. Remember, if there's not an exponent, it's a 1. So x to the 1 plus 1 is 2. Y to the 3 plus 1 is 4. Z to the 2 plus 3 is 5. You multiply the coefficients, you add the exponents. The exponent of 1, I saw several people miss that on yesterday's assignment, so make sure you're paying attention to that. Also, make sure you realize that the coefficients, the number at the front, do whatever the problem is. Multiplication here, because we have parentheses times parentheses. The exponents will never do what the actual problem is. So we added them since it was multiplication. Okay? So this was exponents. Day 2, we were focusing on dividing. If you have any questions, call me over.